All right, so let's talk more about focus, and with that we can create a lot of attractive videos. But before that, if we go to focus setting on the right and go to focus method and put it on disable, we won't have any type of focus in our scene. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now let me check if my camera has been added to the sequencer properly. Let's see if everything's all right in here. Let me see. So these are the basic movements that we created for these pieces of furniture. Let's check my camera. It's here. Let's see if it's added to the sequencer properly. It has a child actor as well. So okay, it's this one, cine actor, cine camera actor. Okay, so all right, so we have the camera in our sequencer, but let me see if we need to add it again. So it has this element child actor, but what I want to do right now is to start with a new camera, and I want to get rid of this element. So I'm gonna delete this camera altogether, then I'm gonna add it again. So click anywhere on the timeline, go back, select the camera, go to track, add to sequencer, and then you have your camera. Okay, so freshly added camera. It has these items here, transform and some other items. Aperture, you can change aperture in sequencer. We have focal length also, and focus distance. So we can work with these items inside that video if we want to. But the most important items that we are going to be working with is transform basically, and we're gonna move the camera and rotate it. Okay, so what I want to happen is to alright, so you can see everything better from this angle. Before that, make sure to only select Cine Camera Actor 1, which is your camera. Do not select the child or other elements under it. Make sure to select the Cine Camera Actor every time you want to do something with it. So after that, so basically what I want to happen is that I want the camera to be placed where it is. I want it to record a 5-second animation of the sofa, then move to the right, rotate, and record something else with the other pieces of sofa, and then move again. So that's what I want to happen. So for that to happen, we need to find or pinpoint the exact moment when we want our camera to start moving. It should be after the pieces of sofa or furniture are done being manifested and properly positioned. So I find that, and then I'm gonna add the keyframe for my camera. Okay, so it's roughly here, and it stops moving a couple of seconds later. Make sure to work with Curve Editor and get to know Curve Editor in detail, because it's a very professional tool, and I'm gonna give you a couple of examples so that you can become better at it. So I want the camera movement to take about roughly 2 seconds. So this is where I want my camera to stop moving. So I'm gonna move the camera and rotate it, and then add the updated keyframe at about 2 seconds after my initial movement. So the camera is gonna move like so. But the problem right now is that you can see that the camera is making an extra turn. It's making an extra rotation. Okay, so if you compare the initial position and the last position or the end position, you can see that we have some extra rotation, and we're gonna fix that next. So I'm gonna go to rotation, find the axis. It's this y-axis that is responsible for this problem, and then I'm gonna fix this with the Curve Editor. So we're only moving from minus 150 degrees in y-axis to 160 degrees in y-axis, which is basically 10 degrees, but the camera is just doing everything exaggerated, and it's just doing an extra turn. So I open the y-axis with this Curve Editor. Okay, select y, it's selected already. It's this curve here. So it starts at minus 150, okay, and it ends up at 160, not minus 160. So what I can do is to get rid of this extra turn. I'm gonna drag the minus 150, put it to around 150, okay, not minus 150, and it's only 10 degrees now. If I save it and go back, this time you can see that the camera only rotates around 10 degrees, the only amount that is required. So it doesn't make any extra rotation, okay? All right, so now let me just make everything tidy here, put this curve editor on the side. This is an instance where having two monitors is very beneficial, because you can have tabs like the curve editor that you want to work on in real time on the side and look at your sequencer, and also the viewport and the scene as well. So not that I learned how to work with this curve editor on this y-axis, what I want to do is to kind of change the initial point slightly. So instead of 150 to 163, I'm gonna take the initial point to 180, something like 180 or more, okay? So it starts moving from that angle 180, and it ends up at 163 or roughly 160. So it's basically the same thing, but I just changed the initial point of my camera, or the initial rotation or angle of my camera. I'm gonna save it. Let's see how it looks like this time. So this time it's gonna rotate for like 20 to 30 degrees. Let's see. Okay. All right, so let me just move this little keyframe there. So it starts moving here and ends up here. So take a look at the camera's view. You can see the rotation there. And now I'm gonna show you how everything looks. Okay. So this is what we have with both the pieces of the sofa manifesting and also the camera rotation. So this is how you take care of that camera rotation bug that we had. And let's see. All right, so our camera starts moving kind of fast. So what I'm going to do is to take these keyframes here, move them down further down the line, and let's check it again. This time it starts moving a little bit later and it's better. So you can tweak this anytime that you want until you get what you are looking for. So I can do it even later on in the movement. All right, so let's go ahead and make another camera movement here. So maybe 1 second or half a second later on, we add these keyframes. Nothing happens here to the camera, not that much movement, but at roughly 1 second later, I want the camera to have this angle and this position. So I add the updated keyframes here. Okay, and let's check it out. So the camera is gonna move. Nothing happens really at that 2 second mark, 2.50 second mark, but the camera changes the angle after that. Okay. Now, if you take a look at this video, you can see that we have different speeds, and that's not a good thing. Make sure to have harmonious speeds. So I'm going to make the last movement take longer so that the last movement is kind of the same speed as the other ones. Okay. So the more harmonious everything is, the better the video. Alright, so what we need to do is to take care of these pieces of furniture, and we're gonna manifest them like we did previously. So it's gonna take half a second roughly, and let's see if we select everything correctly. It's this cushion here. Okay, so these two pieces of cushion have not been added. We select everything, go to this button and add to sequence. Okay, we cannot see them. Let me see. We got to do it one by one. Add to sequence, this one, the other one, the smaller one, add to sequence, and the big piece. Okay, and we have the big piece already added. So we need to find the exact moment where these should be already manifested. Okay, so it's when the camera starts the other movement, its second movement. So it's here. I'm going to add the keyframe here because here everything should be manifested. So I'm going to select all those cushions as well, and I'm going to add that keyframe in that timeline because that's when the camera makes its next movement. Now we need to move back a half a second, and this is where this big piece needs to come out of the right or nowhere, let's say. Okay, so it's going to slide in. It's going to take half a second, and the big cushion, let's say, drop down from up there. So okay, maybe there, maybe higher. Yeah, so it's gonna move down on top of the big cushion. So I'm gonna add that keyframe, and then let's check it. Okay, so this one slides in and this one comes on top. And this is small cushion, we want this to scale up into existence, let's say. So we want to make this real small, make the 0 scale, add the keyframe, and then just scale up until it gets manifested. So let's check everything. Okay. Now we have a problem here. So for our first movement, we can see this big piece of furniture on the right. Okay, so this needs to not be there. Okay, so what we have to do is to select it and add a keyframe where this is outside the building, let's say. So I'm gonna put it there, add that keyframe so it's not there when the first movement happens, and then it slides in 2 times. So that's another problem. So we need to fix that as well. So all right, so let's play this a couple of more times to see where the problem starts. So I think there's something wrong with the transform keyframes of this big piece of sofa. So I'm gonna go see if the problem is with the location. We have these keyframes here, so they come in, the big piece slides in and slides out. Oh, there. So we have 2 sets of keyframes. That's the problem. Okay, so if we delete 1 set, everything will be fixed. Okay, we need to pay great attention to these little details because they're gonna mess up our work. Next, I want my camera to start moving a tiny bit later. So what I'm going to do is to find the camera selected in my sequencer. Okay, it's these keyframes here. I'm gonna select everything, move them a little bit. Okay, so we have this tiny bit of delay before the camera starts its last movement. So let's play everything. Everything seems to be working fine. Okay, so basically everything seems to be working fine, and after this we can have extra camera movements where it can just move to other sides of the apartment and capture other movements from objects. Okay, we're going to talk about flow and focus in a moment, so we have a lot of things to cover in this video. So this is what we have achieved so far. All right, so the next thing that we need to learn is how to make a video export out of this. So let's say we are done with the animation and this is what we wanted to achieve. Now we want to make a video output out of it. So what you need to do is to select the time or duration for your video. For example, my video, it's gonna end at roughly here. Let's say 5.5 seconds, or maybe 5 seconds would be enough. 4.7, let's say 4.7. So you go to camera cuts and drag this slider to cover the area that you want to capture on your timeline, which is basically 4.7 seconds. Okay, next you can click on this render button here, and here you get the level that you added for everything. So it's the same thing, you can delete it and add it again, and for me it's the sofa level here. Next we have the image, which is basically it's going to be a JPG format image. So you may think, why is it an image? Because we're going to be stitching a lot of images together to make a video, and I'm going to show you how. If we click on accept, we can change a couple of more things. For example, the destination folder where all the images are going to be stored. And also if we go to this setting, we get to change the output, the size of the frames or the images, we can change them. So we also can change the number of frames per second. Right now it's like that 24 frame per second. If we click on this, we can choose 25 or 30. Most video players are gonna be okay with 25 frame per second, but you can put it on 30 if you want. So if you click on accept and click on render local, it's gonna start the process. So this is the window that you get when it starts the process, and you get to see a render preview of everything, which is going to be in low quality. This one's going to be done pretty quickly. It's not gonna take that long. And we're gonna basically see some previews of some of the images that are being rendered. And right now you can see that everything's happening quickly, and in under 29 seconds we have 26 frames, and it's gonna take roughly 145 seconds or maybe less for everything to be finished. So in the meantime, let me just tell you a couple of things. Make sure to practice everything. Right now I can just do the same thing that we did for these pieces of sofa. For other parts of the apartment, it's going to be the same techniques and the same we're going to do the same things. It's going to be boring, but in order to get the hang of it and master all those techniques and tips, you need to do it for yourself and practice on this scene with different objects. So basically you can create a lot of great videos with just camera rotation and camera movement and changes of location, so you can use all of them to your benefit. So everything's done. Let's go to that folder. We have all of these frames, 144 frames. The first one is called 0, okay, at the end, and the last one is probably 143, so 144 frames here. And we're gonna stitch them together to make a video in Photoshop, and I'm gonna show you how. Okay, so let's just go to Photoshop, and I'm gonna copy this location, go to Photoshop, hit Control and O on my keyboard and paste the folder destination, and I'm gonna select the first one, and then check this image sequence box that we have down here. Make sure to do this. By the way, I'm using Adobe Photoshop 2022, okay? And then click on open, and everything will be done automatically. You get this window. It says how many frames per second, and 30 is okay. I click on okay. So I get this window, and if I click on my window and add the timeline, you can see that when I play the first time, it's going to be a slow render of this scene for Photoshop, the program itself. So the first one is going to be slow. This is not the actual speed, but after the first render of this inside Photoshop, it's going to be the actual speed. So if I play this again, this is the actual speed of everything moving and the camera also moving and our video. So you can do the same thing for other parts of the apartment, and you can just create little videos and put them on your Instagram account. It's gonna be really beneficial for you. So the next thing that we're going to learn is to how to create a video out of this. So if I go to File and click on Export, then out of all these items, I'm going to need to click on Render Video because I need a video. So if I click on Render Video, I get this new window with a lot of settings that I can just adjust. So first we need to change the location to where we want to save this video here. I'm gonna select this folder, and then I can change the quality or the size, and also this format thing, which is H.264, is basically MP4. So H.264 is MP4, and I'm gonna click on render. It's not gonna take that long. I can even add some text on this video, but I personally recommend that you, after you make the video, you use a program called Camtasia, which helps you add text and music and anything else to your videos and make them really professional. So the rendering is done. We can go to that folder and let's see what we made. So I'm gonna open this video. Let's check it out. Just gorgeous. Just check out the quality. Now you can do something else to get this kind of video but a higher quality. You can just instead of using high quality screenshots and adding them together from this window, you can change it into one frame of 8K video, and that way you can also achieve a very high quality. So here you would have one frame but a very high resolution, something like 8K. Okay, so instead of a lot of screenshots, you're gonna get one file, which is gonna be the actual video. You can do that also. Now let's check out the video again. I'm gonna explain something to you about this little video. Let's just play it again. So this little movement, let me just pinpoint the time here. At the beginning, this little flip of the cushion and the movement of these bigger ones when they slide in, these are really important, and they just are very effective in capturing the people's attention. So make sure to use them in your works. Alright, so for the next part, we don't need the sequencer anymore. We're going to be talking about the focus and the field of view and how to use them to our benefit in our scenes. So that's what we're going to cover next in the latter part of this video. And after we have worked on this focus and field of view, we're going to be able to create a lot more attractive scenes. Okay, so let's start with some theory. So basically we have a focus distance, which is basically the distance between us or the camera and the object we want to be in focus. Okay, so next we have the depth of field, which is basically an area we want to be in focus. So the area that we want to be focused on is called depth of field. And this depth of field can be controlled and adjusted. So basically, to repeat what I just said, we have a focus distance, which is the distance between us and the object to be in focus. And also we can choose what area to be in focus, and we call that depth of field. Now, to control this depth of field, we can have different attributes in different software or programs. For example, inside Unreal Engine, we can determine the area that we want to have in focus with the help of aperture. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do that with a couple of examples, and you're going to learn about everything in just a couple of minutes. Okay, we're going to start by adding a camera here. So I'm gonna add a camera, create Cine Camera Actor. Okay, and let's see. Next, I'm going to go to the Details tab, add the Details panel, and I'm gonna start by changing the size of my film bag so that I have a smaller size. Let's see, something like this. This is the view our camera has, and you know what? On second thought, I think I'm gonna change the size of film back again and maybe change another use another angle. So I want to have the kitchen as the background, so let's say this could be a better angle. Okay, so I'm gonna see this view. All right, this seems more suitable for our example. Okay, this angle seems nice. Let me check from the back. Seems okay. So I want to do something with this faucet here. So this seems to be a nice angle, and I think this seems to be fine. So next I'm going to search for my camera. Let me just go to outliner, search it inside the outliner, camera, let's say, sorry, camera. So this one is the camera that I just added. This is the setting for this camera. So if I go down under focus method, I can either choose manual or tracking. If I put it on disable, you won't have any type of focus. So I have to stick with these two. If I choose manual, I have to manually use this picker that we have here, this button, and choose the object to be focused at. So I want to be focusing on this faucet here. So let me just zoom in a little and select it with this picker button here that we have, like so. Okay, so now this faucet is going to be focused on compared to the rest of the background. So I have this other option here called manual focus distance, which helps us determine the area that you want to be in focus. For example, as I'm increasing this number, you can see that the area of focus moves from in front of the camera onto the back. Since we have a low value, we cannot see the focus that well. So if I change the aperture or decrease it, we're gonna see everything better. But the problem that comes with that is that our scene becomes brighter, and we talked about that bug before and how to fix it. So we go to exposure, we enable these items and making sure that these two boxes are checked and it's on auto exposure, and we can just manually change this number into 1 or whatever. And if we go back and find our current aperture, we can just lower it and have more blurred focused in our scene on our faucet. So if I decrease this number, for example 1.2, let me just change the minimum, make it 0. Let me just change the minimum into 0.1. Now I can just lower it even more, and you can see how blurred this faucet area got. And I did this to make you understand manual focus distance better. So right now, if I change this number and make it bigger, you can see that the blurred area moves to the back. Right now the faucet is in the focus, and if I do the vice versa, right now the background is in focus and everything in the front is blurred. So this is how manual focus distance works. Now, if you had any problem realizing what the area of focus is, you can use this draw debug focus plane, which just visually shows you what area is in focus and what area is not. So right now you can see as I change this focus distance, and if you look at this small window here, you can see what area is focused or not. And I'm going to show you another example. For example, this object, this decorative object on this table. Let me just set everything up, go back to my camera view, see everything inside my camera, and I'm going to disable this debug focus plane, and we're going to do it manually. Let's see. So right now you can see that this decorative object is in focus, but if I change this, I can put the area of focus further back or in the front of the decorative object, and it's no longer in focus. Okay, so I think you just understood what area in focus and focus distance means and how it works. So for another example, let me just find another suitable section of this scene to demonstrate something else for you. So just bear with me. Let's see if we can find another suitable area. Maybe this, maybe somewhere inside the kitchen. Let's check out the kitchen again. So I want to explain something else to you. Okay, this seems to be nice. So if I use this picker element and choose this teapot here to be in focus, right now you can see that everything is blurred except for this teapot, even this sugar container that is really close to it. So this means that we have a very narrow depth of field. Okay, so our depth of field is so narrow that it only captures this teapot here and not things that are centimeters apart from it. Okay, so right now this depth of field that you see in this picture is very narrow, and to widen that area we can just increase the current aperture. So by increasing this number, you can see that the sugar container and the things that are around that area are getting inside the focus area as well. So that's how we work with this current aperture to change our depth of field as well. So if I make it really small, you can see that it has the opposite effect. Okay, now we also have another option called focus offset. Here it's this one that offsets our area in focus. So for example, if I change this number, right now the background is in focus, but if I make it smaller, the table or the front is in focus and the background is blurred. Okay, so that's how this offset works. And let's move on. If I change the camera's distance or location, you can see that this teapot is no longer in focus because the focus worked with distance. So right now, if I rotate around it and change the camera, for example, you can see that this item that we wanted to be in focus is no longer in focus. And we have to do something about that. And we can fix this problem or issue with tracking. This is where tracking comes to help us. So if I change the focus method from manual to tracking and use this picker to choose the teapot, you can see that regardless of the distance, wherever our camera moves, that area would be always in focus. That teapot would be in focus. So, but it's very narrow, but if I can just change that by changing the current aperture number, and if I do that, I will have more depth of field and more things in our focus. Okay, so let's pick another object, for example, this piece of furniture here. So if I select this with tracking, regardless of where we go, it's always going to be in focus. I'm going to decrease the aperture so that it's more juxtaposing and you can see things better. And let's find another one. So we can choose another object to put in focus with this picker. I'm going to select this decorative object here and let's take a look. Now, beautiful. So imagine slowing the camera speed and like so, and just using a camera hovering around this decorative object and getting some beautiful shots from different angles. But remember, you have to put the method on tracking. If it's not on tracking, let's say we want to create a video, because your camera is going to move and change the distance, it's going to mess up the whole video. So make sure to be putting the method on tracking. And let's just try this vase here on this table. Just beautiful. And just as you witnessed, using focus and depth of field could be as easy as I just demonstrated. Okay, so let's create a video output out of this too to see everything more clearly. So I want to have my camera focused on this object and just move up and then move back and down, and when it comes back, this object is no longer in focus. So let's go ahead and create that. So the first thing that I have to do is to just select my camera, change the method from tracking to manual, and then I can just create another level sequence or use the one that I previously worked on. I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this one H5, for example. So I'm going to drag the sequencer up a little. Okay. Next, I'm going to find my camera. Let's just search for it. I have two. Let me see if I chose the correct one. So let me just double check real quick. Let's see what this one shows. Okay. Yeah, so the first one is selected correctly. Then I add it to my sequencer like so. And then let me just make sure that it's just on seconds, the frames. So let me see, it's on seconds. Yeah, so I want my camera to move up slowly, and I want it to take 10 seconds. So I'm going to drag this to the 10-second mark. Okay, so it's not animated yet, but my camera is going to move and it's going to take 10 seconds for it to go up very slowly. And after it reaches the top, I want it to focus on the piece of furniture. So let's start with the transform. So camera starts here, add one keyframe, and then go to the 10-second mark, go up and add another transform keyframe where we want it to be there. Okay, so we have this type of movement. It's going to take 10 seconds from here. It's going to go up and it's going to reach the top in 10 seconds. Next, I'm going to go to the curve editor to have one fixed velocity or speed. I don't want it to accelerate and deaccelerate. So like I said, I use the straight line, and you can see that everything happens in one speed. And you know what? I'm going to make the video longer. Let's say 25 seconds. So I'm going to drag this to 25 seconds, and then I'm going to move the keyframe here to the 25-second mark because I want the camera movement to be really slow. So I want this movement to take 25 seconds, really slow. And great. So let me just double check the curve editor to see everything's all right. So yeah, straight line, everything seems to be working fine. Okay. Okay, what we need to do next is to change the focus as the camera is moving. So let's say for our initial point, the starting point, we want to add a keyframe for our focus distance, which is focused on this decorative object here. Okay, so I'm going to add a keyframe for my focus distance. I can do the same for aperture and focal length, but I don't need to. So I added a keyframe there. Around the 6-minute mark, okay, I want to change gradually to another type of focus. So I add a keyframe there as well. Let's say around 12 seconds. Okay, I want to change the focus distance now to cover the furniture area, and then add another keyframe. And now if I go back and see, you can just see how beautiful this is. The focus changes gradually and moves to the back as the camera is moving up. Great. So as you just see, this is very easy to do by changing the keyframes and working with the sequencer. We can just create a lot of beautiful videos. We can animate the objects, we can animate the camera, change the focal length, aperture, depth of field, focus distance, and we can just use all of these tips to create an awesome video. Now the next step for you is to just practice on this scene. You have this scene, you gotta work on it, work on the materials, create a new material for your furniture, change the color, change the textures, and start adding the camera and creating videos. And after you have done so and created good videos, you have to move on to the projects of your own, a couple of projects at least. Nobody has learned Unreal Engine 5. We're just working on one project, so make sure to work on a few more projects after this, and a lot of things you're going to encounter when you're working on your own projects, and that's just natural, and it's just the best way to master Unreal Engine 5. And I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you practice the new stuff that you learned here, and I will see you in the next one.